The things that are popular at the moment are sociology, psychology, political science, but there has to be something that is an overarching narrative that pulls everything together. And I think the various narratives from different points of view in good historical writing is really valuable. He was so broad in what he'd read and what he knew, what he could remember, what he could put together. He was an amazing thinker. Or at least I haven't read as many historians who would take as big a canvas as he would and attempt to write about it.
I loved running into him in the halls. He had a funny kind of a duck way of walking, where his feet splayed out, and he always had a big smile. He usually had a stack of books. And this was a man who loved learning. If you mentioned almost any topic, he would turn around and pull out the book because he seemed to have a photographic memory for everything he'd ever read.
For Larry, the focus was on engendering more educational responsibility in cultural process writ large.
Education comes in a variety of forms. Unlike the fundamentalists, I believe there are alternative routes to an education and alternative versions of an education. And therefore, I believe that when education is popularized and broadened in a way to make it more accessible to more people, it's not vulgarized, it is popularized and equalized.
He would go to the maintenance people's Christmas party. I think first time he did it, they were all stunned. But he sat down and played the piano with somebody and had a drink with them. That day, the day right before the Christmas holidays, he'd come home without needing a glass of wine with dinner. He enjoyed doing it and being a human being. And this whole business of the starchiness, which we consciously tried to undo.
In the 1930s, when they were attempting to use radio for education, and until recently with television as educator, it failed because educators were insufficiently imaginative in designing what you would call the software, in designing the programs, in designing the substance that the new technology was going to convey. The new technology doesn't carry its own teaching. It doesn't carry its own substance. And the great challenge whenever a new technology comes is to provide substance that that new technology can proffer to students.
Larry's background suited him admirably for running an institution like this. His father had run a private music school in the city for many years. Larry was a wonderful pianist, and Larry had been an impresario. He brought together and musicians, set up concerts and so on, and helped run the music school and so on as a young man.
I'll always be grateful to Larry Cremin for the shaping role that he played and the very high standards that he set for me, and giving me the confidence that I could be a historian and think of myself as such, and also giving me the support to go wade out into the public arena and shake off the slings and arrows that came my way.
All three volumes are dedicated to my daughter Jody and my son David. The first volume came out in 1970 when they were 10 and 11 years old. And the dedication carries a quotation from Leviticus, the Shema, which says, "Thou shalt teach them in the morning, thou shalt teach them in the evening, thou shalt teach them in the home." The second volume came out in 1980. They were 10 years older. And the dedication carries an excerpt from a poem by Goethe, which says, "We have no right to shape our children. They come to us from the hand of God. It is our job to nurture and sustain them, to bring them to maturity, and let them be what they must." The third volume has the quote from Margaret Mead, and it indicates to me the three relationships that parents have with their children that are educated. The children are young, the parents teach the children. As the children mature, the parents and children learn increasingly from one another. When the children are at the height of adulthood and the parents grow older, frequently the parents have much to learn from the children.
He loved what he did. He had a A whole room at Teachers College filled with books. It was the most wonderful place to study. I didn't feel worthy of studying there, but I mean, it was an amazing place. His interests were so broad, far-ranging. His knowledge was so broad and far-ranging. And how he had the time to read what he read, I have no idea.